Now we will discuss food additives, their definitions and functions. If we talk about the definition of food additives or what food additives are, they have been defined as chemical substances which are deliberately added to food, whether directly or indirectly, and they have certain functions such as preservation or improving the qualities, different qualities of food, such as functional properties or color or flavor, or increasing the shelf life of food. And these additives have to be added in regulated amount because these chemicals they must be regulated in a way that they do not pose any health hazard in the longer run. Additives can be active or they can be inactive. They can be nutritive, they can be non-nutritive, they can be toxic. They should not be toxic and hazardous, in fact, because this is what outcome that we don't want. And sometimes there are many incidences where some of the additives, when known in indiscriminate amount, or when there is no information, scientific information emerges, they can be banned for use in food. And this is one of the routine practice that happens. So that is why the regulatory bodies keep an eye on different additives, their levels, and toxicity studies as well. But ideally, none of the food additives should have any toxic or hazardous reaction when consumed in normal amount. Some of the unintentional additives can get into food which are undesirable. They are called as contaminant. For example, many of the pesticide, they can get into your food, and when consumed they could have very undesirable reactions in humans or in animals as well. There is one terminology called as GRAS, GRAS, that stands for generally recognized as safe. This is a classification of different additives that have been proven to be safe by extensive research and deliberations by the regulatory authorities, and they can be different things such as sodium bicarbonate, different fruit acids such as citric acid or malic acid, or different gums or such as agar gum. So these are the compounds that are apparently harmless, but they are also already been tested by regulatory authority, and the GRAS status is normally given to food which do not possess any known hazard to human health, and that would reduce the amount of effort that goes into determining the toxicity studies, and because they are very long and laborious processes to understand the toxicity of any food additive. As we discuss about the additives and their doses and the permitted level of additives that can be added to food, there has been a lot of debate about these ionization radiation that are used for food preservation, and this has been declared as a food additive because ionizing radiation can be used very effectively in many food processes or for preservation purposes, but when the higher amounts are used, they can have some of the harmful effects. So there has been extensive deliberations, extensive studies by FDA as well, and then they have came up with certain regulations regarding that ionizing radiation should be treated as an additive. Its dose must be calculated, it must be retained within those limits, and it must be labeled as well. Other than requirements that we earlier discussed about food additives, there must be other 5 criteria that must be considered while we add anything to our food as a food additive. We should know that intentional additive, when added, they should perform an intended function. We should know about the function of an additive when it is added to food, and we should be able to see that intended function achieved within the food. We should not be deceptive so that we say it for something else and it performs some other functions. So we should actually know a lot about these additives. That is the reason all the additives are not allowed. They have to be researched, they have to be approved by the regulatory authorities before they are actually added in industrial level. Then the additives must not deceive the consumer. or they should not conceal the quality of food product, like showing it as a superior product. For example, we might add some of the nitrogen compound. This is one of the practice that people add urea into milk to increase the nitrogen content. That is an indicator of protein content in the milk. And we have also witnessed that the scandal of melamine, where thousands of infants suffered due to the melamine content added into milk. That was the reason to conceal the lower protein content within the milk, and the melamine or other additives showed higher protein content. So it should not conceal the actual quality of the food. Then they should not reduce the nutritional value of food. Once we add one additive, it should not have any negative impact on the food nutrients, because certain additives can have negative effect on the absorption availability of certain nutrients. The next level is that additive should not be added to a food to achieve an outcome which is possible to be achieved through good manufacturing practices. For example, if we can achieve a desirable outcome within a food product by proper processing or good manufacturing practices, which is a protocol followed to actually take care of all the consideration of health and safety and good practices that are performed within an operation. So if one desirable outcome is possible through other means, we should not use additive to counteract the GMP or good manufacturing practices, which are more desirable in case of food as well as in the drug industry as well. And then we should have a method of analysis. If we add any additive to food, we should be able to analyze this additive. Its amount must be, it should be able to be analyzed. There should be a method to analyze that, because if you don't have that and a regulatory body approves one additive for food use and later it could not check or monitor the levels are being achieved or not, or either there are people adding more additives to achieve desirable outcomes, that might have negative effects, because the amount and dose of additives have to be controlled. In order for this the objective to be achieved, it is only possible to monitor the additives when we have analytical procedures available with good accuracy and precision within our labs. And we should also be able to look at the migration of these additives, because additives might be added to the food and it can migrate to other components, or it might be added to the packaging material, and from there they might be able to get into the food system. So we should be able to analyze these additives and their movements. Only then additives can be allowed to be added in the food. So this was basic details about food additives, their definitions and different functions.